This is not a sauce in which you really need to build up the flavors a little bit at a time and a different cooking. It's pretty much the same constant flow of cooking. So the next thing that we need to do is to actually impart the flavor to it. You know that usually I always hold back with the salt, but you always want to give a little bit of the salt right here and right now, because we want the salt to do two things for now. And what I like to use, by the way, is sea salt. We want for the salt to help draw out its juices, draw out the water, because you want it to go into the bottom, into the stewing process itself. Also, a little bit of black pepper. I love it. And here you're going to love this and be surprised of it at the same time. A tiny bit of vinegar and a little bit of sugar, almost in the same amount. This creates, in Italian we say, come si può dire, agrodolce. Agrodolce is a word that, in my opinion, belongs to Sicily. You have to realize, historically speaking, sugar was a very rare commodity. In Sicily, we have a lot of salt, but not sugar. So the addition of sugar meant in the old days that you were a man of wealth, and therefore balancing with the vinegar, the agrodolce, the sweet and sour, creating this unique finish to it, brings out these super flavors. The next thing that we want to do as well is to add parsley. Parsley just like this. The parsley will bring a flavor. It's going to move this whole stewing process into a certain direction. The next thing that we want to do is add the garlic. But I have to show you something very important about the garlic. And pay attention to what I'm saying right now. This is the garlic we're about to add. You see how thick it is? It's very important that you leave it thick. Remember, this particular dish, the peperonata, will cook for roughly about 35-40 minutes, depending on the amount that you make. If you were to add chopped garlic, the chopped garlic, as you turn this occasionally, you want to turn the peperonata as it softens every 15-20 minutes. If it goes to the bottom, the chopped garlic will burn. And unfortunately, if it burns, it's going to ruin for you the whole dish. Now, to add some of the liquid and make sure that the peperonata also picks up the traditional red color, we put some tomato sauce. And this tomato sauce is going to take it for us exactly where it's at. From this point on, all that you want to do is to let the peperonata go. Two different techniques of what you can do. You can put a cover on top of the pot, and this will increase the speed at which the peperonata will come down to its proper look and form. And you want to wait? Nah, come on, I have something for you. I already made it. I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like. You don't need to wait until the end of the show. Follow this. This is what we started out with. So 45 minutes later, this is what the peperonata will look like. You see, thickened, melded, all these flavors running in there. You have the sweetness of the sugar, the little bitterness of the vinegar. The garlic is now completely cooked, and you will be surprised because these pieces of garlic, once you bite into them, would actually melt into your mouth. The combination of peppers, the yellow, the green, and if you're lucky enough, orange is wonderful, even a little bit of green will give you a fantastic flavor. Let's now take a look at the shrimp, because I want to share with you something truly exciting on how to actually handle the shrimp. One of the biggest things that people make, not a mistake, it's how you like it. You see the tail of the shrimp, it's right here. I personally don't like dealing with this, especially when I'm eating. So this is what I do. I take two fingers, you simply crack it at the bottom, and you just slip it out. I'll do it again right here. Crack it, slip it out. I have one more over here. Crack it, slip it out. Think of it as a song. You'll go, crack it, slip it out, crack it, slip it up. You'll say, what are you doing? And you'll say, oh, I'm singing the Nixtelino shrimp song. So we put the shrimp in this little plate right here, and the next thing that we're going to do, we are going to pour right on top of it the marinade. You may ask yourself, marinade, Stellino, you haven't shown me nothing. How do you make the marinade? Relax already. Mamma mia, you're always in a rush here. I'm going to show you to make this because this marinade is a secret. I should not show it to you, but this is a cooking show, and unless I share these recipes, you will never trust me again. The recipe for the marinade is very, very important. First and foremost, what you want to do is have a little bit of the peperonata that you made ahead of time. This marinade, by the way, can be made the day before. And don't worry about the peperonata because we do not want to have the peperonata hot in this particular dish. We want to have the peperonata at room temperature. Then extra virgin olive oil, nice flavor. A little bit of sherry wine. Parsley, whole leaves of parsley going right into, just like this. Very important. Parsley imparts a fabulous flavor. A little bit of paprika. Onion powder. Red pepper flakes. Oh, you saw how much I added. You see, my wife is not looking right now, so I get to make it as spicy as I want. And then oregano. Cover the top. You may ask yourself why. You've seen the show before. You know what happens to me when I do it. So what you want to have is a real good strong pull, and it will give you the creaminess of what you want. So done. When you make this at home, the shrimp, you want to let it marinate no more than, I would say, half hour, 45 minutes. The little bit of acidity that's in the wine, if you leave it in here for too long, might actually cook the shrimp. Come with me to the stove. We have preheated this grill pans right here on very high heat. One of the problems that you might have at home when you cook with the grill pans is that being open, much of the heat evaporates. So this is a technique that I've used. I usually stack two on top of each other. This allows you to maintain the heat in the pan below. They don't need to be the exact pans. You can just want to make sure that you have a pan that has the same surface. And the pan below is now, oh yeah, it's ready to go. So we're going to grill the shrimp. It's not going to take them much time for the shrimp to cook. The flavoring that's brought in by the marinade is going to give us a flavor that you will not believe. I would say about 2 minutes per side will do. Then we're going to pull out the shrimp. We want to keep it tender. And we're going to have exactly what we want. Now we're going to turn the shrimp. Ah, look at those grill marks. All that you see in that is the ingredients of the marinade, which are perfect. We're almost there. Our marinade has given us the flavor that we want for the shrimp. Our peperonata is ready. And now I'm going to show you how to plate it. One of the things that I love about this dish is truly, this is a country dish, is as common as it comes. But the complexity of the flavor, the way in which it plays with your palate, it gives you a variety of things. With every single bite, you feel transported to the next flavor, to the next flavor. It's just, in my opinion, in spite of the fact that it has very humble beginnings, it's one of the most elegant things I know. Now, the plating of it, this is exaggerated. It's me just trying to be Nick Stellino. My mom did not do it this way, but I think about this as if I was running the restaurant and I was saying, when customers come in, I want to have an experience that is just as visual as it is something that tastes great. I think that first and foremost, we fall in love with things through the way we look at them. The shrimp is ready here. Ow, 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 ow. Stop. But I love to use my fingers. One of the things that I have not lost. Look at that. Look at the third shrimp right here. How gorgeous is this? And then what I should do next? Let me think about it. Oh, yes. The best of extra virgin olive oil that you can possibly have. And I don't even want to ruin it with parsley or anything else. I just want you to fall in love with this. Grilled shrimp with stewed peppers. And there it is. Tomatoes, are they a fruit or are they a vegetable? Well, if you talk to a botanist, they will tell you that they are fruit because they come from a fruit-bearing plant. However, according to a court decision, a U.S. Supreme Court decision rendered on May 10, 1893, tomatoes were defined to be vegetables. And the reason why was because they are served as a side dish and never as a dessert. Interesting way to go at it. Why do I love tomato? Well, we could go the scientific way. It's chock full of lycopene. And that is a very powerful antioxidant that's extremely great for you. Me, I love the flavor. But how did tomatoes come into our life? Tomatoes were not generated in Europe. As a matter of fact, tomatoes came to America from Christopher Columbus, who brought it right after discovering it. But they were not red tomatoes that came to Europe for the first time. As a matter of fact, the tomatoes that came were these wonderful yellow tomatoes. And that's where the name comes from in Italian. In Italian, the name of tomato is pomodoro. Pomodoro comes from a definition that was given in the year 1544 by a physician and a botanist, Andrea Mattioli, who called the tomato il pomodoro, henceforth pomodoro, very now remembered by every Italian by the name. But that's not the romantic part that I love about it. You see, in the old days, tomatoes were so rare and so few between, they were often given as an act of love between young lovers. And therefore, the name truly, as it reflected, was il pomo d'amore, the apple of love. Different types of tomatoes taste completely different. These heirloom tomatoes, for example, they're not much to look at. As you can see, they're not pretty. but they taste fantastic. What I encourage you is to always try tomatoes in different recipes, in different ways, and make up for yourself which one you love the most. Follow me in the kitchen. These beautiful tomatoes are what I'm going to use to make our beautiful salad with tuna, tomatoes, olives, and capers, a Sicilian specialty. Just a couple of little improvements that will make upon which we'll call the Stellino signature. Tomatoes. Tomatoes are a sweet thing and a tragic thing all at the same time. Why? Especially in winter time, in spite of the fact that some of us get tomatoes all year round, the tomatoes don't taste that great. How to fix that? How to bring back the sweetness of summer into the tomatoes. It's a slight marination that you can do, and I want to walk you through it and show it to you. Cut the tomatoes in fairly thick slices. I'm thinking half an inch at least, like we've done right here. I'm using two different types of tomatoes. Let's see where they go. Uno di qua, uno di là, uno di qua. You don't need to speak Italian while you do it, but it does help somewhat. Why? You know, I find that speaking with an accent gets me out of a lot of trouble. Put the tomatoes right in here. Uno di qua, uno di là, uno di qua. Uno di qua, uno di là simply means one here, one there, another one over there. Let's talk about what are we trying to do and what are we trying to accomplish. Tomatoes, in the middle of summer, if you grow them in your garden, they taste splendid, sweet with everything. If you buy them in winter, they don't. How do we fix that? First and foremost, you put a little bit of salt on each one of the tomatoes. I like to use sea salt. The reason why I like to use sea salt, I find it to be better tasting and much more agreeable. Then, a little bit of onion powder to cover each one of the tomatoes, a little bit of garlic powder. If you have it in granulated form, it's even better. I find it to be kind of sweeter. Paprika. Why? I'm in love with paprika. Is this Sicilian? Not at all. But in my family, we had an Hungarian uncle who introduced all of us to paprika. The next thing we're going to do is sugar. Just a touch of sugar on top of the tomatoes. Just a touch. Now, why are we doing all of these things? All of these flavors that you see me adding to it, slowly but surely, will start to penetrate into the tomatoes. Once we've done it on one side, I want you to turn it onto the other side. Exactly like this. And repeat the process. A little bit of sugar, a little bit of paprika, onion powder, and garlic powder. Now, when you make this at home, this is something that you want to let rest for at least 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, one of the things that you will notice is that the tomatoes will absorb the flavor, a little bit of water will leak out. Nothing wrong with that, but you know now that when you bite into the tomatoes, they have this package of flavor. This is not, and I'm honest to make sure that you understand, a Sicilian tradition. Sicilians eat tomatoes in summer, and what we get is fantastic. This is how we get non-Sicilian tomatoes to taste good all year round. Let's talk about another little bit of trick. Red onions. I find red onions to be my favorite onions for this particular salad, but they have a very sharp, very aggressive taste. How can we somehow smooth over the taste? I find that if you place them in a marinade of vinegar, red wine vinegar, and a little bit of water, which we have mixed in this bowl right here, and you let them sit for about 15-20 minutes, and then after 15-20 minutes, you take it out, you wash them real well, you dry them real well, they will look like this. What is the advantage that you have in doing so? The onions become sweeter, softer, with a rounder flavor. Wonderful to be had. So this is also very important. Let's talk about a couple of other ingredients. I was talking to a friend of mine. I've known her for a long time. She's a delightful lady. And she was saying to me, you know, Nick, I love this recipe of yours, but the capers, they're too salty. I said, how do you treat the capers? Oh, I open the jar and I pour it with the brine right on top of the food. I go, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Stop. What are you talking about? What you got to do, first and foremost, when you use the capers, like these guys, you put them in a bowl. You wash them. Yes, you got to wash them. The washing process takes away the excess salt, takes away the brine, and the flavor comes out without being so aggressive, so harsh. Very important that you do that. While we have the capers, let's talk about the black olives. This, I must confess, is not the way in which it's done traditionally in Sicily. This old salad is served in a big bowl, family style, and the olives have the pit in it. I don't know about you, but I cannot tell you how many times I almost broke a tooth because I did not think about the pit. So what I do in this particular case, I pit every single olive, and then, as you can see, I cut it in half. This will make it easier for the assembly and also will make it much more pleasant for your dinner guests. Think of yourself as if you're providing a series of small luxuries to the people that come and interact with your food. If you think in that form, you will make everybody happy. Now, I'm about to share with you a secret. Nobody's around. I'll tell you then. Watch this because it's unbelievable. You see this? This tuna right here, it's unique. This is called ventresca. I'm gonna turn the jar. Usually they come in jar like this or in cans, similar like this, but do you see the striation? Ventresca comes from the Italian word, which means ventre, which means tummy. It's also called in Japanese toro. It is the richest part of the tuna. It has a lot of striation, it has a great deal of fat, and when they're packed into extra virgin olive oil just like this, and they simmer over a long period of time, the fat renders out and the tuna is splendid. I want to show you exactly what the tuna looks like once we take it out. Look at this. Absolutely gorgeous. You have no idea. This is tuna like you never had. It costs at least twice as much, in some market 3 times as much. They come from Sicily, mostly the southern part of Italy. They come from Spain, Portugal. It's great. Very expensive, but trust me, it's one of those things where it's worthwhile for you to invest your money in. Now, let's put together the vinaigrette. This one is going to be easy. It's going to take no time at all. A little bit of vinegar. Together with the vinegar, we do a little bit of basil and a little bit of parsley. Then get the best quality of extra virgin olive oil that you have on hand. And this process that we're doing right now is a process called emulsion. In this process, what we're doing truly is the vinegar is mixing with the extra virgin olive oil, and by whisking it about, we are introducing air into this flow. The air that we introduce into the flow, as you can see, is making it look nice and thick. At this point, what I love to do is a touch of sea salt, a little bit of pepper, and if you feel like it and nobody's looking, a little bit of sugar. There you are. Yes, yes, yes. We're just about ready. Now, let's assemble this dish. I have chosen a very elegant plate, and I'm saying, why? It's only tomatoes. I'm thinking, if you're gonna do something, do it good, or else don't do it at all. So I choose the better tomatoes. I choose the side that I like of the tomatoes. Look how delicately I do this. You know, my wife says, Nick, you're always exaggerating. And maybe I am, but it makes me feel bad. This guy's too small. We'll put a bigger one. Now we start and we build it. The first thing that I want to do is to sprinkle it with the capers. I want you now to think in the fact that what you're doing is not just throwing ingredients in there, you are building flavor bases. Then we take the olives, and you just put the olives on top of each one of the tomato. Then a little bit more of the herbs that we used before, parsley and basil. Look fantastic. Now, let's go with the onions. The onions, you cover it just like this. Trust me, at this point, the onions are not as harsh as we had them before. They're nice and soft. And then take the tuna and treat this tuna as if it was the most expensive, most delicious thing ever, because it is. Put it right on top like this. These pieces of tuna, once you engage with them in your mouth, you will say, Stellino, we love you. You should, to begin with, not just because I've shown you this, because I love what I do and I like to share it with you. And then it's the moment to decorate it. How do we do this? Take the dressing. Let the dressing touch the tomatoes, touch everything. Don't be over forceful with this, just a little bit. What you want to make sure is that everything molds together. And it is at this point that you fall in love with the things that you're making. Tuna, tomato, olive oil, and caper salad. And when people ask you, how is it possible that it tastes so good? You say to them, you know what? I know this guy. He's got an accent. It's kind of cute. But boy, can he cook. And that, of course, would be me. And there it is. It is an honor to have you with me here in my kitchen as we prepare grilled shrimp with stewed peppers and then a salad of tuna, ventresca of course, tomatoes, capers, and olives. I hope that you will use these recipes, you will share with your friends, with your neighbors, with your family, and turn your home into your favorite restaurant. Until next time, ciao. Shrimp. I love everything about shrimp. The most important thing about shrimp is not just the flesh itself, is the shell. As a matter of fact, if I can give you a big word of advice, is when you shop for shrimp the next time that you do, make sure that you save the shells. What I like to do is to put them inside a plastic bag, put them in the freezer, and when I have enough, I make my own shrimp stock. You will love me for that alone. The other thing is how to handle shrimp, how to cook it. Depending on the size, the timing of the cooking varies, but the best way to go at it is with high heat, blasting it for a short period of time. To really bring out the flavor into the shrimp before you cook it is to brush it with a little bit of oil and then spice it up with your own favorite flavor mix of spices. Sugar, salt, pepper, yes, sugar works wonders. Paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, so that when you finally cook it into the oven or under the broiler, immediately all this flavoring become almost a crust-like. On top of it, many times you find yourself in need of small shrimp, but they're not available, and all that you can get is colossal shrimp. If that is the case, do not despair. Simply treat the shrimp as I told you. Take the shell out, cut it in small pieces, and do whatever you need to do. Life is made of improvisation. It makes life a lot easier. Ciao, I am Nick Stellino, and I have selected for you 2 great recipes, comfort food. As a matter of fact, when the weather turns cold, this is exactly what you will want to make for your family and friends. Today, we'll make butternut squash soup with a confit of pepper asparagus and spicy sausage, followed by pea soup with a confit of peppers and shrimp. Please, join me in the kitchen. Spicy, just right. I'm shopping for my favorite ingredient for the soup I want to demonstrate for you. This is a kind of winter squash, but it's not my favorite winter squash. My favorite winter squash is butternut squash. Butternut squash, the Latin name of which is Cucurbita moscata. Try to say that fast 10 times. Even I cannot do that. One of the great things that I love about it is it's very easy to cook. It has a flavor that's rich, dense. If we were, for example, to cut this, the inside of it would be orange. And the riper it gets, the more deep orange it gets. But it's not just the color that I like. It's not just the flavor that I like. Also, what it does have is an enormous flexibility on how you can actually use it in the kitchen. You can roast it, you can saute it, you can make the soup, as I will show you. But it's the health benefit that this particular vegetable does have. What I love about it is, first and foremost, an enormous amount of antioxidants, which are great for you. There's B6, potassium. Unbeknownst to me, as I was studying onto it, I discovered that a cup of this, taken on a daily basis, is your whole allowance of vitamin C. The thing that I love the most about it is how it responds with a unique yield of flavor to the different type of cooking that you do. If you were to experiment with this, one of the things that I propose is try different techniques. If you roast it, it will taste a certain way. If you saute it, it will taste a different way. If you cook it in the form of a soup with a sofrito underneath, and by the way, when I say sofrito, I mean a nice combination of onions, celery, carrots, which is at the base of every soup that we make, it will pick up a different type of flavor. It's the amazing dexterity that this particular vegetable has to respond to the different type of cooking and the yield that it brings back that I truly adore. Now, let's talk about storage. Most people buy this and they put it in the refrigerator. This is not something that you would want to do. When you buy this, keep it in a cool space, very well ventilated. And in this present form, uncut, it will stay nice and edible all the way for about 3 months. If you should find yourself needing a piece of it and cutting it, then you need to cover it with a little bit of plastic, put it inside the refrigerator. But at that point, you have no more than a week. The seeds on the inside are not edible. I would suggest that once you cut it open, get rid of the seeds, also because they're the first one to spoil. And then enjoy it in different techniques. I'm going to take this with me to the kitchen, and I'm going to show you step by step on how to make the most luxurious soup you've ever seen. Follow me in the kitchen. Butternut squash soup. I love that accent I have, with a confit of spicy sausage and peppers. Now, this is the butternut squash in its original form. When you see it at the supermarket, what we've done, we cut it, we peeled it, and we diced it exactly like this. If you're lucky enough at your supermarket to find this already diced, and many supermarkets across the country do have it, do buy it. It saves you a ton of work. This soup, to me, is something that reminds me of comfort. I was talking to a friend of mine who I made it for, and what did she say? She said, oh, it reminds me of a romantic walk through the countryside of Tuscany. And I kind of like it, in spite of the fact that I'm Sicilian. First and foremost, we start with some extra virgin olive oil. In the making of the soup, I want to treat this soup as something elegant. You have to realize that for the longest time, myself, I've always thought of soup as, what could I say, something boring. You know, I don't look at soup and say, oh, mama, I'm going to have soup. Soup to me is soup. When I think of soup, it's minestrone. When I was a little boy, my mom used to make soup for us because we had to eat vegetables. And to me, it meant that day we had no pasta. It made me very sad. Later on, I discovered, through the passion that I have for making sauces, the soup can be just as exciting as a sauce. You just have to think of creating a soup in the same flow, in the same manner in which you create a sauce. I'm going to walk you through it. I'll show you how to assemble it together, and you will feel the same excitement that I do as we get this going. So, in the olive oil that is now cooking, we add a little bit of carrots. Together with the carrots, also a little bit of celery. One point that I want to make that you really need to kind of grasp is, it doesn't matter to make these cuts too elegant. These cuts are called in French paysanne, which means like the farmer makes it. Nothing offensive about it. Truly, what that means is that ultimately this will braise in for a long, long time. And as it braised for a long time, it will become nice and soft. Each one of them right now is bringing out the flavor of what truly creates the base. This is called il triumvirato, also known as il soffritto. These three ingredients are at the base of everything that we do. We want to stir them about as the heat is starting to build up. I don't want you to start with a super hot pan. I don't want to braise them. I don't want to burn them. I don't want to mark them. I don't want to caramelize. I want to come to the flavor together. It's like they're taking a walk, they're getting to be friends, they're getting to know each other. As they do that, we start to add other aspects of what makes the soup very interesting. The first thing is red pepper flakes. This, we gotta put it in. A little bit of heat, fantastic. You can put dry spices of anything that you want. I like thyme. You can even use oregano. I find that the thyme is much more interesting. It brings out, and I find that, by the way, dry thyme is even more flavorful than fresh thyme. I know that a lot of you will not disagree with me, but that's how I feel. Sage is the other thing. A whole leaf of sage or pieces of sage, just put it in there. Allow for this to come out. The sage is to me something sacred. Immediately makes me think of fall, you know, the comparison to a walk to the countryside of Tuscany, I think is ideal. I'm going to have to call Bridget and tell her that she really connected with this perfectly well. The other ingredient is something that we need to pay attention to. Garlic is essential. Garlic, in spite of the fact that it's a southern ingredient, mostly in the southern part of Italy, especially in Sicily, is something that needs to be handled in a certain fashion. What we have done, and you'll see exactly what I mean, as I added thick cut garlic. People are concerned about the thick cut garlic. They feel that ultimately it's going to be very difficult to digest. They're going to have problems biting into it. Remember, we're going to cook this for a long, long, long time. It's going to be braising through. And once we get to the point of 40 minutes of cooking, in the liquid that we're going to be adding, the garlic is going to be soft pulp. Now, brandy. You can use sherry if you don't have brandy handy, but I like to put a nice little deglaze at this point. Crank up the heat a little bit just so that we make this evaporate. Always be careful because when you add high alcohol spirits like this, they could flame up. As it happened to me before, sometimes you have to talk to my wife. She will tell you about the misadventures in the Stellino household, and a few of those do involve flaming up in the pan. Next thing you want to do is to add the butternut squash that we have cut in cubes exactly like this. And the next thing that you want to do is to add chicken stock. I prefer chicken stock. I find the chicken stock in the making of a soup has a much mellower flow, something that I truly come to love and enjoy. Bring this to a boil. Once it reaches to a boil, reduce the heat to a simmer and let it simmer for about 45 minutes. Well, as you can see, it's reduced down to exactly the consistency that we want. Now what we need to do is to process it down to a smooth finish. And here is my little friend, immersion blender. I love this. Check this out. Turn it on. There you go. This thing is very powerful. Do not be careless because it does a job that you will absolutely adore. Look at that. You want to do this for a few minutes until you get it down to the smooth consistency. You will come to love this piece of equipment. Now, once this is done, let me show you what it looks like exactly, because I want you to kind of lock up visually the consistency that we're going after. And here we have the soup that we have smoothed all the way through. We cooked it, and then we reduce it just for a couple of extra minutes. Look at this. Nice and pulpy, exactly the way in which it's supposed to be. Take a little taste. I am good. The next thing I want to show you is how to make the confit. The confit is made with a spicy sausage, which is a dry sausage. You can use linguica. You can use chorizo. You can use any type of sausage that you want. What we want to do is to bring out a flavor that just dances, and put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in the pan. This confit to me was an idea because I was thinking The soup is great, but how about putting something into the soup that just makes everything dance, makes everything fly? So what I like to do is, while the pan is getting hot, I like to add the spicy sausage. Even Italian sausage would work, by the way. I just discovered the sausage lately. It's not part of my tradition, but it has a flavor to it, something that really elevates the food to the next level. The next thing I want you to see is how I cut the ingredients. This is very important. You need to look at it because otherwise it might change the way in which it does. The asparagus, very small rounds, as you can see. Even the florets of the asparagus cut very little. We did not parboil this. These are in the original form. The peppers, the onions. What I try to do is to have everything cut almost the same. I always tell you not to use chopped garlic. In this particular case, I like to have chopped garlic and chop very, very fine. It will be the last addition that we make to the dish. And for the fact that it will be the last addition, the heat that's retained by the ingredients will ultimately firm up the cooking of the garlic. And that's exactly where we want to go with that. And then red pepper flakes. Why? You say it's spicy already. You're dealing with a Sicilian. We like spicy, but don't exaggerate. I mean, come on. Don't make something just for yourself, especially if you have friends at home. Always check with other people if they do mind or they don't mind spicy food, because that could be a problem otherwise. So the next thing that we do, we add the other ingredients. Here we go with the asparagus, the red peppers, a little bit of the white onions. The fact that everything is cooked so fine, so small, really makes it so much easier for us to deal with, and you're going to enjoy that part of it. Look at it. Guarda, guarda che bellezza, eh sì. Let it cook on high heat for a few minutes until you see the asparagus and the onions to wilt down a little bit. Once it gets to the consistency that you like, the next thing that you want to do is add a little bit of brandy. Just a little bit. Una sfumatura. Una sfumatura means just a hint. And here is where things get to be interesting. Once you get to the point in which all the ingredients are now cooked for a few minutes together, the brandy has evaporated all the way through. Here's what I want you to do. Turn off the heat. Mind you, I'm doing it quite quickly at home. You want to do this for a few minutes until everything is cooked together. So the next thing that you want to do at that point is a little bit of cheese, a little bit of butter, and just a little bit of extra garlic. Then, in the heat that's retained in here, just mix everything together. Ay, ay, ay. Let it melt together. This is spectacular. Okay, the soup is ready. The confit is ready. Now, I'm going to show you how to plate it. Now, the plating is very simple, and it's overly exaggerated because I like design. Look, when I serve it to myself, this is how I like to do it. Why? It makes me feel good. Let me show you how to do this, because I've done this for many parties that I've done for several of my clients, and they absolutely adore. What I've done with the soup, I add a little bit of extra stock right before I serve it, brought it to temperature. The reason why I do that is because it pours smoothly. Look at this. It's fabulous just to look at it. Now, the confit that we did before, right before I showed you how, I let the confit cool just a little bit. I want for the butter and the cheese to mix together and to create this beautiful mound right in the middle of it. And there you'll see what I do. And I like to put it right in the middle because once you engage with it and you start picking up these ingredients, the soup, the elements of the confit, all these things that mix together, forgive me, I had to do that. Now, a secret. This is called truffle oil. It's very expensive, but it's worth it. You don't use a whole lot of it, just a few drops. Look at this. Look at this and you say, this is Stellino's recipe for butternut squash soup with a confit of peppers, spicy sausages, and asparagus. Is it good? All you have to say is, it's a Stellino signature dish. You know it's good. And there it is. Peas. Most of us get their peas from the frozen section. Don't be discouraged. Frozen peas are fantastic. As a matter of fact, frozen peas, due to modern technology, have picked about 2 to 3 hours within the first picking. They're splendid. But there was a time when peas were not something that everybody could afford. As a matter of fact, Elizabeth I of England used to have peas in her diet all the time. She used to import them from Holland. Very expensive ingredient to have. They were considered to be as expensive as caviar. Pea's name in Latin is Pisum sativum. Italians, by the way, invented the petit pois kind of peas. It's been known, actually proven through historical records, that Caterina de' Medici, when married Henry II in France and went to the king's court, not only brought with her a bunch of Italian chefs and all the techniques and pots and pans, but also several plants of petit pois, small peas, which as Italians we call piselli novelli. Of course, you talk to a French chef, you get a whole different story, but this is my show. I'm Italian, and I get away with it. What do I love about peas? I love the way they taste, I love how they feel, and I love what I can do with it. As a matter of fact, I want to show you a fantastic recipe, so follow me in the kitchen because I have something great to show you. Peas. This is the main actor in this drama that we call pea soup, with a confit of pepper and shrimp. Bet you never heard of that before. To tell you the truth, it's nothing that you get every day. I like pea soup, but I always think soups, as always, are boring, until I came up with this idea, how to make this pea soup and build it together like I like to build a sauce. I told you the story before. Well, in this case, we start with a little bit of olive oil that we put right here in a pan, and then we move, and once again, we start building this exactly as if it was a sauce. What does that mean? First and foremost, we go with the onions into the pan. Remember, you do not want to have the pan to be too hot. You do not want to scorch the veggies that we put them in there. Rather, we want to caress them with a little bit of heat. So we just added the celery and the carrots. In this case, you notice that I still maintain the same style of paisan, very simple, informal, different shapes. Ultimately, these ingredients, together with the broth that we will add later on and the peas, will let them simmer for a long time. And when we're done with the soup, when we process it, we'll just have them into a pulp. So the even cut of the ingredients is not that important in this case. It makes it a lot easier for you. It makes you relax. It lets you flow with it. You have to think about the fact that everything that we do kind of builds up a layer of flavor. And this layer of flavor is something of extreme importance because it permits us to bring this from a soup-like character more to a sauce-like character, which is what I love. So at this point, one of the things that I like to do is to add some red pepper flakes. Red pepper flakes are a fantastic way to have a uniform addition of heat. Also, a little bit of thyme. Thyme has become, for me, one of my favorite spices. I love the aroma that it releases in the kitchen when you're using it. Stir this about just so that everything gets in together. I'm so sorry we do not have aroma flavor yet going through the lenses of the camera because you will be totally enthralled by it. This, however, what I'm adding next is a same story, garlic cut thick. Trust me, I tried this before with chopped garlic, but I find that when we add chopped garlic to summer recipes like this that we want to cook for a long time, the garlic sometimes gets to the bottom of the pan, and because of the fact that the volume has been reduced so enormously, it might have a tendency to burn. Burnt garlic is very difficult to digest. Also, it does impart a most unpleasant flavor to anything. Think of garlic as a gentle soul that you have to coax out and bring into its flow. Let's go back to our peas. A lot of people are concerned, frozen peas, fresh peas, fresh is always the best. Nothing beats fresh. But frozen peas makes a great alternative. As a matter of fact, I want to go openly on television and confess to everybody that I do use frozen peas when I cannot get a hold of fresh peas. But before I actually add the peas, you got me so excited I almost forgot the ingredient. In my hand, I have brandy. You can use brandy, you can use sherry. I've also used sometimes Marsala wine, and if I don't have any of this, even something as basic as white wine will do for you. If you choose white wine, go with something that might be on the sweet side, like Gewürztraminer or Chenin Blanc. There you are. Now, when you add the brandy like this, be always very careful of the flaming possibilities of it because we're dealing with very high heat. Good. I'm going to reduce this down to a glaze. Once it reaches a glaze and it's reduced completely, then we do add our peas. And this is the part that I love the most. The color of the peas is wonderful in the background of everything. It really gives you a very clear sense that we're moving in the right direction. Mix everything together and already they look beautiful. As a matter of fact, if you wanted to at this point, you could put everything into a baking dish, put it in an oven, preheat it at 500 degrees, and you would have the most fabulous melange of roasted veggies. There, I just gave you a free recipe. How do you like that? You come for one, you get two. I know, I'm good that way. Next thing we add is chicken stock. I prefer chicken stock. If you do not want to have any chicken stock or beef stock, even vegetable stock would be fantastic. Bring this to a boil. Once it reaches a boil, then I want you to reduce the heat and I want you to simmer for about 45 minutes. Now, we have let this reduce to the proper consistency. As you can see, the volume is much lower. At this point, we want to use our immersion blender. I love this machine because it just does it for me. It makes me feel super. Watch what happens. I put it on the inside and look how quickly it changes. Now, it will take you a couple of moments. Well, no moments, a couple of minutes to get this done right. But once you do this, you will bring this down to the perfect consistency. What is it supposed to look like instead of making you wait all this time? Follow me. I have here what I refer to as the perfect consistency. And this is the pea soup that I like. Let me taste it. Fantastic. I love it. You could serve it like this, but not at a Stellino household. You say, why not? I like elegant, smooth, flowing things. One last step that I want you to consider is the straining of the soup. Be aware of one thing. Once you strain the soup, it will actually force you to lose almost a third of the volume. I'll give you a sample on this one. You have the strainer placed right through it. I'll move this aside. Watch what happens. This is what you need, a spatula. The spatula allows you to push the pieces through. I did this for the first time with my nephew Andrew, that's now taking a passion of cooking with me in the kitchen. As you can see, the liquid going down and most of the pulp being left behind. This pulp, there's nothing wrong with it. It's fantastic. But what you're left with underneath, in my opinion, has such a luxurious, silky-like feeling that is unbelievable. So we'll put this aside. Once you strained it all, what I want you to do is to cook it on high heat and just reduce it a little bit more to give it the kind of thickness that you want. Now, let's look at the ingredients that make the confit, because this confit is not the same as before. No, this is different. What we're gonna mix here is chopped shrimp, together with chopped pork bacon, together with peppers that we cut very finely. It takes place in a quick moment. One of the things that you want to be concerned about is to cook fast and quick, because this thing will go from cook to burn quite quickly. Pay attention to what you do. Do not get distracted. First addition, bacon, chopped bacon that we put right in here. Remember, put a little bit because the bacon will release a great deal of its own juices. Then chopped shrimp. I love the shrimp addition. Bacon and shrimp is one of those combos which I discovered by mistake, and it's just fantastic. A little bit of the yellow peppers, then we go with the red peppers. You can choose any combination of colors that you want. Even green, not a problem. The onion, finely chopped as well. And then at this point, a little bit of the chopped garlic. This will cook in no time at all. You'll see the shrimp cooking before your eyes, moving from white to red. One of the things that I tell everybody is to make sure that when you do this, to spread it around and have high heat underneath the pan to get the look, the feel, the taste of everything that you have exactly where you want it. Just a little bit of salt at the very end to make sure that all the flavors are amalgamated with flavor. A little splash of brandy. Let the flame die down. The last thing that we need to do is the addition of butter. And at this point, what I want you to do is to completely turn off the heat underneath. Together with the butter, just a touch of Parmesan cheese, and let all the ingredients mix together. So, we have the soup ready, which we strained already. The confit is ready here. All that we have left to do is to assemble the dish, and that in itself is a wonderful artsy preparation. Let me show you how. Plating this is a work of art. First, let me make sure that the taste is exactly what I like it. Fantastic, fantastic, just a perfect flavoring. So here we go into our bowl. There you are. And now, we go with the topping, and the topping is what I love the most. There you are. Every bite that you will take, every spoonful of this, you will have a little bit of the confit coming together with the soup underneath, and this is the combination that makes it. You might say to yourself, this is a masterpiece, and I'll simply say, no, this is simply pea soup with a confit of peppers and shrimp, and then the last touch, a little bit of truffle oil going all the way around to make this even more regal. My gosh, it's beautiful. But of course, it's my recipe. And there it is. Thank you for joining me. It was a pleasure to share with you these wonderful recipes. A wonderful butternut squash soup with a confit of spicy sausages and asparagus. And then pea soup with a confit of bacon and shrimp. Hope you'll share this with your family and friends, and I hope that you will use these to turn your home into your favorite restaurant. Until next time, ciao. I love sausages. What I love about sausages is the way they taste. And I love to come here to my favorite butcher because he makes it with love. This is an old family recipe that's been in the family for many, many years. He makes all sorts of sausages, anywhere from kielbasa, chorizo, Italian-style sausages. And by the way, you should be aware of the fact that just about any Italian-style sausage that you find anywhere in the country is based on a Sicilian recipe. Us Sicilians like to feel that way. Why is that so? Fennel seed. Fennel seed is what makes the sweet sausage. Difference between sweet sausage and hot sausage is the addition of peperoncino rosso, red pepper flakes that gives it a little bit of fire. You also need to have a good amount of fat in a sausage to make sure that when the sausage cooks, it does not dry out. Pork, obviously, is the meat of choice. Butt or the shoulder is what they're used. These sausages are fantastic. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna get them all wrapped up and take it with me to the kitchen to create something special for you. Ciao, I am Nick Stellino. I don't know if you know this, but when I have a cocktail, my favorite cocktail, it's a martini, just like James Bond. So I decided to make something special for you today, something inspired by my favorite cocktail, and that is New York steak with a vodka martini sauce, and then pears in a marsala wine sauce. Please, join me in the kitchen. Spicy just right. I'm here today with my favorite butcher, Russell. Came here to pick up a few New York steaks for this recipe that I want to make, but Russell wanted to teach me something about the way in which I've been shopping for meat all the time, and specifically regarding the color of the meat. Russell, you're showing me here different cuts of meat, and one thing that I noticed is that this New York is not as dark as this other pieces of meat that you have. You said that this is oxidized, right?
Exactly. That's all it's doing. Is the meat is oxidizing, and it just adds to the flavor and tenderness.
So the darker color of meat that I see occasionally, you actually telling me that the flavor is better, the oxidation brings out all...
Definitely.
How come I never see it on your thing?
This is what I take home for dinner.
You see, this is what you discover when you ask the right questions. People like this, they keep the best for themselves. Russell, this steak over here, do you have any of them that are oxidized, even slightly oxidized?
You gonna take my dinner from me?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, I'll get you some.
He's gonna go get me those steaks. You know, in life, as in everything else, you learn every day. And one of the most important things in the shopping for meat is to make sure that you have this constant relationship with a butcher who can guide you, especially from some informations that we might have already predetermined in our head, which are not necessarily the correct one. The meat that is more flavor and how when it's aged brings out this incredible taste, especially if you're a meat eater. Today, these steaks that he's getting from me from the back are the ones that I will cook for you, and you will see what a fantastic recipe that is. Steaks and martini, two of my favorite things. As a matter of fact, these things are so favorite of mine. Every time I travel, I always like to have a steak dinner to celebrate something great. And when I get home, after I hug my wife, after I play with my kittens, one of the things that I love to do in the evening is to have a martini with my wife. By the way, you should know my wife hates martinis. She does not like that as a cocktail, but she is the best martini maker ever. Of any bar, of any hotel, anywhere I go in the world, she's the best. Honey, you're fantastic. So one time I said, why don't I make something actually that's inspired steak, martini. I said to myself, steak with a martini sauce. How about that? So this is something that came out one day. I did a couple of tries to make sure that all the elements would come together, and the result I'm going to show you right now. As usual, we start with a nice pan, extra virgin olive oil in it, and remember, we're building this as a sauce, so it's a blossoming of ingredients that we put in. Celery, and you'll notice that these ingredients are cut roughly because ultimately we will strain the sauce. Then we go with carrots and with white onions. Sometimes I feel to make it a little bit more elegant, and instead of white onions, what I use are shallots. Shallots have a little bit more of a sophisticated flavor to it. When you do this at home, I want you to cook on medium-low heat this ingredient and do it for about 3 to 4 minutes. One of the things that I find when you cook with medium-low heat is that the flavors themselves blossom, they open up inside the context of the sauce, creating a structure, creating a foundation that really builds upon. Now, As I was thinking about it, how do I get to this whole thing? How do I give it the flow, the body? And one of the things that I fell in love with is, why don't we put some bacon in there? You know, actually what happened, I had pepper bacon in the house. I didn't know what to do with it. I have it for breakfast every once in a while. I said, how about we put some pepper bacon? You can use any kind of bacon you want. But bacon with its presence, with its fat. Pork, by the way, to me is another one of my favorite meats. The bacon, as you add in this particular case, is going to elongate, expand the flavoring that this sauce does have. The important thing is also to realize how do you bring out other elements that continue this build-up on. It's like building a little house. So you can go with any spices that you want, but if you want to make it my way, next thing that I do is a nice bit of fresh parsley on it. Always, I like to add the fresh herbs in here because the herbs are not for decoration, it is not for garnish. Ultimately, once we cook the sauce, we will strain the sauce. So this parsley will go away. But if you put it early into the process, the parsley, as it cooks together with the other ingredients, is going to give us this one. Look at this ends. Amazing. I know. One time, my wife told me that the only way she can shut me up is by making me stand still like this. If you ever see a family photograph of me standing still, I look like a doofus. Not that I don't look like a doofus now, but that is the extreme. Let's move on to the next few things because she tells me I also talk too much. Lemon juice. I added lemon juice because when I tried this the first time, I was looking for a bit of tartness that would kind of bring it in. So, and I have this little tree in my backyard, a lemon tree, which is absolutely pathetic looking, but it puts out the most incredible lemons. I refuse to take the tree out. It's got character. Cook it with the lemon juice. You see what happens when you put wonderful fresh lemon juice? It reduces. It gives it a glossiness and an imprint of what is to come next. And what's to come next at this point, I like to add, is the garlic. Chop fairly thickly. Doesn't need to be. Do not put chopped fine garlic, because if you put chopped fine garlic at this point, one of the risks that we have is as we continue to cook the sauce, that if it's chopped too fine, it may actually burn and turn the sauce to the other side. Now here it comes. It is true. And we got to confess this without making any excuses, that the true martini is made with gin. That's it. However, James Bond has it with vodka. And you know, there was one of the greatest movies ever that I saw. My name is James, James Bond. No, wait, he says, in Italian, in truth, we say, mio nome è Giacomo Bondi. In English, my name is Bond, James Bond. And he likes it shaken, not stirred. You have no idea how much fun I have. Every time I go to a bar, I recite the line. So, to me, a vodka martini tastes better. Is it the right way to do it? Truly, it's not the original way, but it's the version that I like. So here we go. A little bit of vodka and a little bit of vermouth. Now, when you do this at home, remember you're cooking with high heat. One of the things that you want to do is make sure that you watch for the flame that could come anytime. You want to reduce this down by half so that the liquid has mostly evaporated. Once the liquid has reduced by half, the next thing that I want you to do is to add the chicken stock. The last ingredient that I put is more for color and to continue the flow of the sauce. Remember I told you a sauce is like building a house where you have to think of what room, where is going to be the TV room, where is the bedroom, what is the view. To me, this tomato sauce brings this whole thing into completion. And this is exactly what I'm doing right now. You add the tomato sauce. Now, at this point, you bring this sauce to a boil. Once it reaches a boil, I want you to reduce it down to a simmer. You let this simmer for 45 minutes. So you go from this look to a darker, deeper, more reduced volume. And this is what you will have right before we strain the sauce. So the sauce is ready now, but we will strain it later. Let's go back and talk about the steaks. Dry aged steaks are the most expensive ones and the best steaks to be had. The problem is that when you look at them, they don't look all that pretty. As a matter of fact, you see these dark spots. This is what happens in the aging of the steaks. This is a New York cut. You can choose any cut that you want. New York is my favorite. So now we go, ooh, look at this. I have my own martini. I think I should take a moment to reflect on what I'm doing next. What a bouquet. I love this martini. Forgive me. Fantastic. I will finish this later. Now we go with the steak. First thing I like to do, always brush the steak that you want to cook with a little bit of olive oil. Then, here's where a lot of people go, just a little bit will do. If you're gonna put salt on a steak this size, you gotta put salt. Don't hold back. And pepper, because this particular flavoring is the first thing that you will interact once you start tasting the steak. So, we turn the steak on the other side. We do the same exact thing. Here we go. And there, once again, with a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. The pan, I have a grill pan. You can do this on the barbecue at home. I believe that barbecue steaks are the best steaks, but if it's in winter time and it's snowing outside, if it's winter time and it's raining outside, barbecuing might not be an option that you have open. If you're using grill pans at home, learn how to use the grill pans. You always want to put another pan on top of the pan that you're about to use so that the heat is properly contained within the two pans and it gets to the temperature you want right away. So here it is. I'm going to move this aside, and here we go with our steak. Now we are ready to flip it. There you are. I like to cook the steak until it's medium rare. That's my preference when it comes to a New York steak, but you can have it done whichever way you want. The steak is looking absolutely fantastic, and I cannot wait to dive right into it. So let's see. The sauce is ready. The steak is gonna cook for a little while longer. And how about that? I'm gonna show you exactly how to plate it and how to do a little bit of trick with the olives that we use for decoration. This you're going to like. The steak, after you cook it to whatever doneness you like, you have to let it rest. 5 minutes. What happens, all the juices inside the steak will redistribute themselves, and by the time you get to it, after 5 minutes, it will be so much more tender. You will thank me for this. You have to be patient. Trust me when I tell you, in all the fine restaurants, that's exactly what they do. They never take it off the grill, boom, and put it right on your plate. The steak is too tough at that point. So let's move this aside for just a second. I've let it rest for a moment. I want to show you something that is actually fun. It is not essential to the recipe, but it is fun for the making of the recipe. A nice sharp paring knife. These are pimento olives that you find just about anywhere at your local supermarket. Choose whatever brand you like. This is what I like to do. The first cut is a sacrificial cut. Then, as thin as you can possibly go, make this little tiny round, just like this. This is just for decoration. It's not going to add any extra flavor to it, but it's one of those things that's going to make the decoration of the steak absolutely delightful. The one thing that I want to show you is how to handle this part. If you're cooking for a large crowd, if you find yourself in the making of a party where you want to have all these dishes looking exactly perfect, one of the things that I find is it's helpful when you actually cut all these ahead of time. Preparation, preparation, preparation. Think in certain way, what I always say to my friends is think backward. What you're going to be doing. Now you got the food, it's ready to go, and you want to decorate something. If you spend too much time decorating the plate, by the time the plate comes out, the food is going to be cold. So here's what we're going to do. We cut everything, we put it on the plate. We already have a plate here ready to go for the plating of our steak. This is the plate that I chose. I'm going to place it right here. Roasted carrots, takes nothing to do those. You peel the carrots, put it in the oven, you roast them. That's it, salt and pepper. And then spinach, saute spinach. You know how easy that is. The one thing that we want to do is to place the steak. How do we place the steak? You can place it any which way you want to. One of the things that I like to do is to place it almost on top of the ingredients to give it some height. It makes it fun. Here is the part that I love the most. This is a sauce. We have strained the sauce, and then we reduce the sauce a little bit more and just add a little dollop of softened butter to give it a sheen. So here we go with the sauce. Look at this. Mamma mia. This is the part of dinner that I love the most, just presenting the sauce. Guarda, guarda che bellezza. Te lo devo dire, guarda. Infatti adesso I'm going to taste the sauce. The perfect consistency. And then, just like a little boy playing with little toy soldiers, here we go with the little slices of... I know, I'm ridiculous, but I love this. So, here it is, New York steak with a vodka martini sauce. And there it is. Well, you might not know this about this gentleman, but he is an economist by trade. However, he's also known as one of the most reputable authorities when it comes down to pears and apples. So I will be asking some information as to how do you know when this pear is actually ready to be picked? Because you're telling me that the pear has to be picked green and then...
Ripens in the house.
Okay.
Anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks afterwards.
Well, you also were very specific about the technique, as you were trying to teach me before, and I would like for my viewers to also learn when you were explaining to me. show me exactly, step by step, how they should do it when they do this at home.
You don't do this for apples, but for pears, what you want to do is you want to find out when the stem is ready to be broken off. And the way you do that is you basically take all the weight off, turning it about 90 degrees,
Yeah.
and then giving it a twist. And if it's ready, it comes right off, it'll break. If it's not, it needs a few days.
Well, that's one of the most important things that people really don't realize, and this was a huge mistake that I've always made. I assumed that the pears had to actually completely be ripe on the branch, and then, like tomatoes,